Hi again, friends. It's Mrs. Kim. I wanted to read you a special story from my mom and dad's house. My mom's name is Nancy, and so I'm going to read you Fancy Nancy by Jane O'Connor. So let's read Fancy Nancy, friends. And let's look at her first. Look. Ooh, she does look fancy, doesn't she? I see an umbrella. That looks like maybe a feather from a peacock. Ooh, she's got on some fancy shoes. So let's see what's in the book. You know I always have trouble turning pages, friends. It says, I love being fancy. Look at her bed. Oh, wow. Look, she has a heart pillow, corazón, and it looks like flowers. Oh, she's got flowers everywhere. Oh, and look, she put lights up in her room. And look how fancy she looks. She's wearing pink, rosita, rosado, rosa, isn't she? My favorite color is fuchsia. That's a fancy way of saying purple, violeta, lila. I like to write my name with a pen that has a plume. A plume means a feather. That's a fancy way. Oh! She's going to tell us. That's a fancy way of saying feather. And I can't wait to learn French because everything in French sounds fancy. Nobody in my family is fancy at all. They never even ask for sprinkles. So let's look at Nancy. There's Fancy Nancy. And look at her family. They don't like to be fancy. And that's okay. Let's turn the page. There's a lot they don't understand. Lace-trimmed socks to help me play soccer better. Sandwiches definitely taste better when you stick them in frilly toothpicks. A princess is supposed to keep her tiara on. What's a fancy girl to do? I ask my doll Maribel. Her full name is Maribel Lavinia Chandelier. Let's see. Look. Do you see her dressed fancy? And she has on a tiara is a name for a crown, friends. And look, there's her fancy doll. Oh, Nancy is so fancy. Then I get an idea that is stupendous. That's a fancy word for great. Maybe I can teach my family how to be fancy. I make an ad and stick it on the fridge. Let's see that ad. I'm going to come up real close so you can see the ad, and then I will read it to you. The ad says, learn to be fancy with lessons from Nancy. Start today. Easy, fun, and free. I wonder what her lessons are going to be like. Soon, there is a knock on my door. My family saw the ad. They want to get started right away. So look at Nancy is being their teacher. And look, her sister is trying to stand like Nancy in a fancy way. Isn't that great, friends? The trouble is my family doesn't own any fancy clothes. That's okay. I go find, what is that fancy word? Oh, yes, some accessories. Accessories, look at, it looks like she has hats and scarves and feathers. And look at her family. Their clothes don't look fancy, do they? But Nancy wants them to be fancy. I'm going to take this part off, friends, because it keeps falling off. Ooh la la, my family is posh. That's a fancy word for fancy. My mom twirls in front of the mirror. Why don't we go somewhere fancy tonight? How about dinner at the King's Crown, Dad suggests. Wow, my parents are acting fancier already. Let's see, let's look how fancy they are. Well, there's Nancy, and there's her dad. Look how fancy he looks. Oh, and there's her little sister looking at herself in the mirror. And there's her mom. Look how fancy her mom looks. I would wear that outfit, friends. I would, with that feather and everything. Mrs. Kim loves to be fancy. May I escort you lovely ladies outside? The limousine is waiting. My dad is our chauffeur. That's a fancy word for driver. Look at that. There's their car. And there's everybody. Oh, and look, Dad is going to be their chauffeur, their driver. When I'm here with my mom and dad, my dad is the chauffeur, but his name is Paul. So let's see. When we arrive at the King's Crown, everyone looks up. They probably think we're movie stars. Look at them. They're so fancy. And look at the families looking at them. They're like, oh my goodness, look at what they're wearing. I hope they like it. I am so proud of my whole family. They eat with their pinkies up and call each other darling. That's like Mrs. Kim. When I do the sign for more, my pinky goes up because it won't go in. I guess Miss Kim is fancy. So let's look. Oh, do you see? Look. The dad's pinky is up just like Mrs. Kim's. And it looks like they're having a lovely dinner, doesn't it? They all look very happy. Do you remember that sign for happy? Happy. For dessert, let's have parfaits, my mom says. That's French for ice cream sundaes. Amazing. My mother knows French. Guess what? My mom knows some French too. She took it in school and she taught us how to count. I can only remember to 3. Un, deux, trois. And that's French for 1, 2, 3, or uno, dos, tres, which is Spanish. When our parfaits are ready, I curtsy and say, merci. A curtsy, friends, is a little bow. And merci means thank you in French. That's really good, isn't it? Fancy Nancy is using her manners. I carry the tray like a fancy waiter. Oops, I trip, I slip. The tray does a double flip. Oh no! What happened to Fancy Nancy? It looks like she fell down, friends. Oh, I hope she doesn't feel sad. I don't feel fancy anymore. I want to go home. Let's look at Fancy Nancy's face. She does look sad. Remember last week when we made the faces and we made a sad face? That's what Nancy's face looks like. Friends, do you hear that noise? That's a wind chime. It's a little windy here, and that beautiful bell sound is a wind chime. I'll show you when we're done with the story. After I get all cleaned up, I put on my dressing gown. Those are fancy words for bathrobe. I feel much better. I'm ready for a parfait. I tell my parents, thank you for being fancy tonight. Is thank you gracias? Gracias. She looks like she feels better. She didn't look sad anymore, did she? I love you, my dad says. So it would be te amo, said Papi. I love you, my mom says. Te amo, says Mommy. And all I say back is, I love you, because there isn't a fancy or better way of saying that. Look at, and Nancy's going to sleep. Good night, Nancy. So let's find that wind chime. Okay, I'm going to pick you up. Hopefully I won't get it. I won't screw it up. Let's see, where is that wind chime? Oh, there it is. Do you see it? I'll show you. Whoa, don't want to step. Look at ding, 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 ding. Isn't that a beautiful sound, friends? Oh, that's one of my favorite sounds in the whole world. Let's look at it one more time and make the sound. Okay, friends, I hope that you enjoyed Fancy Nancy. And remember, we read it because this is my mom and dad's house, and my mom's name is Nancy. And I think that's her favorite book because it has her name in it. I hope that we get to see each other soon, friends. Love you. Te amo.